Hello, shepherds. Well, the snow from a few days ago all but melted. The sun is shining, and do you know what that means? I mentioned in the previous video how sheep are what I call keystone livestock. Just like with some goats, cows, and even chickens, we get so many things, from wool, fiber, milk, and eggs. Today, I want to share how I supercharge my small garden towards a path to self-sufficiency, resilience, and high production with sheep. If you're like me, nothing's more relaxing than a garden full of life and color. But how does sheep help with that? First off, let's distract the sheep with some fresh hay. Here it is, little pellets of black gold, or more commonly known as sheep manure. Yeah, I'm touching it with my bare hands, but let's take a closer look. And see how it crumbles so easily? Fresh sheep pellets are considered a dry and cold manure. Unlike chicken manure, which is hot and wet, when I break up each pellet, you can see why it's considered dry. If you look closely, you can barely make out what the sheep are eating to make this slow-release fertilizer. Sheep manure is largely odorless. I'm going to leave this here for now, and let's check out our older pile while we yap some more. This pile has a mix of barn waste, mostly sheep manure, but also some straw, hay, and sticks. Now let's see if we can work the soil. Nice. Let's get close. We can see flecks of ice in the soil. The sticks have broken down really well since last winter. We still have large bits of straw and brown matter. Sheep manure on its own is comparable to goat manure. It's a cold manure, and what that means is that it's low enough in nitrogen that it won't burn our delicate flowers or seedlings. It's a great source of potassium and phosphorus. Unlike chicken manure, for example, it is safe to use, even fresh from the sheep. Let's grab some more. There are bits of wool in here. Also, if you didn't already know, wool also makes a good mulch. But let's go ahead and start filling up my cart. Oh, as I was saying, I mentioned earlier sheep-based manure is lower in nitrogen than chicken manure. Wool, on the other hand, is super high in nitrogen. There have been several studies on using wool, especially waste wool, in a more sustainable way. I like to use skirted bits of wool, dags, and the soiled hindquarter bits of wool as mulch for my plants. Large producers, though, may send their waste wool off to a mill that makes them into compostable wool pellets that look a lot like feed pellets for bunnies and horses, but in a very compact form and baggy form ready for sale. For people like us, though, with a super small flock, we can still get a lot of the benefits of wool compost. And here's some things to watch out for so you won't make the same mistakes I have. So, around a bit more than 10 years ago, I had a brilliant idea to use some super coarse wool as a weed blocker. And it was a great way to use some wool that my kids absolutely hated. I had laid everything all out and flat, just like a weed blocker you would buy in the store. It did work, but the wool can take anywhere from 2 months to 2 years to fully decompose. And let me tell you, by year 2, my wool weed barrier changed from a sun-bleached, rain-washed white to a beautiful shade of pea green. It was gross. I swore at that point to never mulch with white wool so heavily on the surface of the soil. Since that time, I found tucking in the white wool into the base of my pots helps greatly with the soil dribble. And even heavily soiled and raw wool breaks down odorless. As a top dressing or weed blocker, I really prefer to use my darker or natural colored wool. It matches the soil color, and even after years, it hasn't turned green. It traps the moisture close to the ground, reducing how much I have to water my plants. Even a study by OSU found that the wool mulch even deters slugs. Those scales that make wool so itchy, well, slugs absolutely hate it too. I've included citations in the description of the video, so you can go ahead and check them out at your leisure. The sheep have decided to join me in working. Sheep are so social, but sometimes I do wish they would give me some space. Remy, of course, has to be in the middle of everything. We're supposed to get snow in a couple days, so I really want to clean out the sheep shed a bit. And let's check this out. Unlike the H pile, or even the scattered bits of sheep pellets, the shed here is very compact and urine soaked. It smells a bit munky or swampy, and definitely has that bite of ammonia. Especially when you lift up this flake right here. I love seeing those layers, and it may be gross to you, but when I see this black layer, I'm thinking how many tomatoes I can grow. Remy, of course, needs to be in the middle of everything. Anywhere I shovel, he wants to stand on it. I don't want to pet him too much, though, and encourage this naughty behavior. He's such a doll, though. I really want to train him to pull or pack, but first I need to sew the gear for his pocket-sized frame. Let's get this to the bed. Our soil is very heavy in clay and rocks. So in order to help aerate our soil, not only through using the sheep's manure and waste wool, I'm also using a type of hugelkultur method through layering logs, sticks, and sheep matter. It's pretty bulky now, but over the course of 2 years, it really breaks down. And then at the end of each year, I like to go ahead and top dress it with some more manure. Having a raised bed really helps in our area, lifting those roots off the water table, and we should get a really good potato harvest. When using sheep's manure, a good rule of thumb is that it's great to grow leafy greens and other veggies, but to help boost fruiting vegetables or heavy feeders like corn, adding some chicken manure into that mix really helps give a bit of a nutrient boost. There's a lot of variation in numbers for the nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus levels of the sheep. So if you really want to lock in what your nutritional component of your specific flock is, most of the farm sites recommend sending a sample of your manure off to a lab for the exact number. But let's go ahead and discuss the averages. Sheep and goat tend to be clumped together, but sheep specifically, from what I've found, tend to have a nitrogen level of 0.87, a phosphorus level of 0.28, and a potassium level of 0.76. Both in my raised beds and as well in the gardens and orchard and areas where I plant more directly onto the soil. When adding our wool waste into our hugelkultur method, it helps support the growth of the plants not only through all these trace minerals, but the wool itself helps reduce watering to how the wool just soaks up and holds all that moisture. It kind of acts like an oil that slowly releases moisture without drowning the roots. Because I do free range my poultry, they really love to investigate all this new disturbed dirt. Sometimes you can find some worms in there. Right now everything's pretty dormant, but oftentimes it's full of life and bugs. The fresh sheep's manure doesn't have so much seeds as like the older pile that tends to pick up stuff over the year. But I'll go ahead and let these chickens have their fun. Depending on what I'm growing, I may put up some chicken wire to lock the gals out. But in the interim, they really help break up those large clumps from the sheep shed that I had just placed in there. I'm not worried about the chickens' poop here or there causing any problems with my seedlings. But I may jab some sticks into the soil to dissuade the chickens from scratching up the soil and give a chance for some of that mycelium or garden mushrooms to take a good foothold. I really like to pack in the garden through layers, and through these techniques I found not only it helps production, but also reduces the amount of busy work that I need to do over the course of the growing season. So next time you check out Craigslist and maybe find some free bags of waste wool, or wonder just how much one livestock can contribute to your life, just know that sheep are there to support you in more ways than one. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like if you found this helpful, and let me know what you're planning on growing this year's garden.